Okay, so what we're going to talk about is basically the steps needed to redo your summary paragraph. So if you're watching this video, it means you haven't done well on attempts 1 or 2, and I would like for you to try and fix some of the things that you've done. So starting with, the first step to any of this process is to work through reading and highlighting and annotating the nonfiction piece. So in this case, we were reading a story called The First Moonwalker. And what we need to remember to do is to go through and use the rule of 5 to highlight any of the more important pieces, paragraph by paragraph. Don't forget, chunking is important. You'll see here that I highlighted the quote that I wanted. I've got some more important words that I maybe wanted to pay attention to, or just knew that they were vocabulary words that maybe I didn't know and I wanted to make sure that I knew, and so I looked them up. Those are circled. And, it's just really important that you go through and practice good close reading skills, highlighting and annotating. Don't forget, it's also really important to take a close look at the rubric. And in this case, I've noticed or highlighted that I'm trying to go for an A. But what I need to do in order to get there is to have a topic sentence that at least includes the title, the author, and the main idea of the story, that it has at least 3 or more complete body sentences, that I'm using some good transitions and it's easy for the reader to read, and I'm also thinking about my word choice. So those are some very important pieces to include in the paragraph if I want to get a good grade. So now when we look at the actual piece where we start to plan out what our paragraph is going to look like, it's important to remember that the name it, verb it, big picture selection really helps you create your topic sentence or the first sentence in your paragraph. So what you're going to do, this particular section, you're going to list the title of the article and the author. I've got quotation marks here around the title as well as a comma to set off the title. I have picked the verb explores, and I'm also going to be saying that this entire article is about the heroic life of Neil Armstrong. It's not just, I know a lot of people for this qualifier said that it was about the moon landing, but it wasn't. It was more than that because it talked really about his entire life. So when you think about the big picture, you have to think about more than just one part of the article. You have to think about the entire article itself. So once I've completed this table here, this whole table, what I'm going to do is then write it out right down below this part right here. I'm going to write it out as one whole complete sentence. And it's important that you understand that this is going to be the first sentence of your paragraph. So just remember, this is the first sentence of your paragraph. And a lot of you kept on forgetting that. Now, as we move into looking at the jot dots, the whole purpose of the jot dots is that you identify. You go back through from your, I'm going to scroll back up. I'm going to go through section by sentence section and take a look at all of the stuff that I have highlighted. Based on what I've highlighted, I'm going to fill out my jot dots down below because those are the most important parts of the article. So in the very first paragraph, there was a quote, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." I didn't want to write the whole thing out because I'll do that later maybe in my paragraph. But I did at least write out part of it, and I wrote that it was a quote. It also mentioned in the very first paragraph that he died recently at the age of 82. It mentioned a little bit later on that he had a partner that landed on the moon with him, Buzz Aldrin. It listed the date that he landed on this moon surface. It mentioned that he was studying aeronautic and aerospace engineering, that he was drafted into the Navy. It mentioned that he was a fighter pilot and he flew 78 missions. So at this point, I have gone through this whole section, and now I'm actually at this paragraph where it says that he joined NASA and was a test pilot. Later on, a little bit more about the moon landing. This whole section here is about the moon landing. So from that whole bottom section, I just said moon landing, science experiments, photos, left behind mementos, that sort of thing. Now what's important to remember is that these things here this whole section, I mean, that's not a sentence. This isn't a sentence. None of that is sentences. So what you've got to do is take these words and make them into full sentences using your own words. The other important thing of also is to make sure that you go through and figure out how it's going to look. So, I think some of the first things you would talk about is that, like this would be maybe sentence number 2, because remember we have sentence number 1 up here. And then maybe we go here for sentence number 3. And then this might be sentence number 4. And maybe we do the quote as sentence number 5. This will be sentence number 6. And then finally sentence number 7. So you've got a pretty extensive paragraph happening here. So let's kind of talk about what this looks like though. So if we're following what this looks like, you're gonna take this whole section here, this sentence. This will be your first sentence. So I'm gonna go ahead and select all of this and I'm gonna copy it so that I can move it down below since I typed it out. So I'm going to write my paragraph down here below. I'm going to add in that whole paragraph, or that whole first sentence as the start of my paragraph. So after here, I'm going to maybe say, Neil Armstrong always, oops, I got to spell Armstrong, right? Was fascinated by the sky. Before he became a Navy fighter pilot, he studied aerospace and aeronautic engineering. While in the Navy, he flew 78 missions and was almost killed when one of his planes was shot down. So I want to go back up again. So I said that my second full sentence at least was going to be about the fact that he was an aeronautic and aerospace engineer drafted into the Navy fighter pilot of 78 missions. But that's not a full sentence. So I went ahead and remembered what I read in the article and added a little bit more to what I saw up here in the jot docs. So if I read this fully out, the article, The First Moonwalker by Roberta Kwok, explores the heroic life of Neil Armstrong. Neil Armstrong always was fascinated by the sky. Before he became a Navy fighter pilot, he studied aerospace and aeronautic engineering. While in the Navy, he flew 78 missions and was almost killed when one of his planes was shot down. After the war, he finished his studies and eventually joined NASA. So I also said for jot dot number 3 that I wanted to talk about how he was a test pilot. So how would we make that into a sentence? So my thinking is before he became an astronaut, he was a test pilot. So I need to put together a sentence like that. So he eventually joined NASA. Okay. When he, oops, I don't want it all caps. When he first joined, he was a test pilot. And then later became an astronaut. Oops, not. There. There we go. So do you see how it works here? You've got to go back through, back and forth, take a look at what you wrote down into your jot dots and realize that those jot dots are not a full, complete sentence, and you've got to add more things in there to make it a full, complete sentence. So hopefully that helps. I'm not going to complete the rest of it because I think it will take too long and make this tutorial video too long, but I think you get the general idea. As you go back through and take a look at the attempt 1 or attempt 2 that you've done, please make sure that you've got at least your topic sentence. That's your first sentence. I'm going to highlight it here. Your topic sentence, and that it at least includes the article title and the author's name, as well as the verb and, more importantly, the main idea of the whole article. That is first and foremost. That needs to happen first. After that, you're going to include all the main important parts of the article by using your jot dots. So please go back and take a look at attempt 1 or attempt 2 and fix the paragraph that you first turned in and resubmit it to Mrs. Carter. Thanks, guys.